You're listening to Innovators Can Laugh, the fun startup podcast. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Eric Melcher. And on Innovators Can Laugh, we investigate a new topic each week and interview some of the most innovative minds in the startup scene here in Europe. My goal is to turn my guests' wisdom into actionable advice that you can use to grow your business. No matter your industry, I'm here to uncover value, fund my guests by doing the proper research and asking the right questions. And at the end of each interview, we have a little fun where my guests reveal fun and interesting facts about themselves, the stuff you won't see on their LinkedIn profile. If you're new to the show, I'm a marketing geek and head of partnerships at tech startup Bonjoro. I'm also an American expat living in Romania. If you're curious about other European startups and what they're doing to scale, gain customers, or things that they do to differentiate themselves, hit the subscribe button because you'll love it here at Innovators Can Laugh podcast. Also, you can play the Innovators Can Laugh game and have an opportunity to compete against other startup folks on Twitter. Just look for the hashtag Innovators Can Laugh. All right, Loic, how you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks. How about yourself?
I'm pretty good. I want to jump right into Flick here because it's this all-in-one Instagram scheduling, hashtag, and analytics platform. How did you discover that there was a need for such a product?
Yeah, really good question. So we actually started off as an agency, and I myself had worked in the space for a very long time. And even before the agency was founded, as a sort of freelancer, I was managing up to 20, 30 Instagram accounts for clients. And when you do that, you sort of become familiar with the pain points of a lot of people because you're experiencing them yourself. So when we started working in a more structured way within an agency, one day one of our clients actually asked us, well, do you have anything to help us with hashtags? And what's important to know is our agency was very much service-based, but we still had a tech background. We used some machine learning algorithms to help us pick out the best influencers for particular campaigns for our clients. And our technical founder decided that, it'd be a good idea to put together an MVP for this client so that they could enter a keyword and it would output sort of a bubble graph of relevant hashtags that they could use. And when he showed us that on Monday, I was like, that's something a lot of people are going to want. And 2 weeks later, we launched our MVP. And 2 weeks after that, we had 200 or 300 paying users. And the rest is history, really. A few months after that, we decided to stop working on the agency. We felt that agencies are very high overhead costs and we were really struggling to scale. So we just went full into SaaS, pivoted the business, and really from that day onwards, we've just been growing it bit by bit.
Okay, tell me, because I use hashtags, and the thing is that I just write in a hashtag that I think is, that's very popular for whatever topic, right? If I'm writing about podcasting, I'll use hashtag podcasting or whatever, right? What is it that your platform, the insights that people were able to pull, why did people find it so valuable and exciting?
Yeah, so there's two key things. So firstly, not all hashtags under the topic are the same. And what I mean by that is when you're making a post on Instagram, it's really important to have the most relevant hashtags you possibly can to the individual post you're making. So it's okay to have, some more general ones, like this might be a podcast, so you might include the hashtag podcast in it, but you might want some more relevant ones that qualify that, what type of podcast it is and the topics you were talking about within the podcast. So that's the first thing. And it's very hard or very time consuming to do that manually. On top of that, hashtags are very much like SEO. So if you are a brand new website on Google and you're in a particular topic, it's really hard for you, almost impossible for you to rank on the most popular keywords on that topic, right? So when you first started a podcast, it'd be very hard for you to show up on the first page for the keyword podcast on Google, right? There's so much competition. It's really hard to do that. But if you were to do that, you'd get a lot of traffic. Now, hashtags work in the same way. If you're a smaller account or an account that has less engagement, it's really hard for you to perform well on hashtags that have a lot of competition on them. Now, if you perform well, you'll get a lot of traffic, but it's very unlikely that you will. So we help our users not only find really relevant hashtags, but hashtags that are more suited for their account size and the level of competition that they have a higher chance to compete at. And then the second big thing is the fact that Instagram provide very little insights on which hashtags are performing. So what tends to happen is you can use up to 30 hashtags on Instagram, and Instagram will tell you how many impressions those hashtags have generated as a group. Now, it's impossible to actually know from those insights, from those native insights, which hashtags within those 30 hashtags actually contributed to you reaching more people.
Right.
So out of those 30, you might have 10 or 15 that didn't contribute at all. And then you might have had 3 or 4 that contributed the most. And that's really where we innovated in that particular niche and in that space. We actually provide and track the performance of hashtags on an individual level. So when your post does well, we're able to tell you these are the exact hashtags that contributed to your post doing well. So you can optimize that strategy over time and understand the topics where you perform the best at, and the individual hashtags where you perform really well, and the ones you don't perform well on, so you can prune those and stop using them.
Okay. So obviously you created MVP, became very popular. I think you said you had like almost 20, maybe even more. I think maybe even more than 20, customers right off the bat, right? What was it that made you decide, let me drop what I'm doing at the ad agency and go create this business with my business partner? Like, how did you guys get that off the ground? Did you have to bootstrap it with your own money? Can you just kind of shed some more light on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually I was working at this agency, and there were 3 founders at the time at the agency, and 2 of those founders are now my co-founders in Flick. So what happened is the agency, 2 out of 3 of those founders stayed on and decided to pivot, and we sort of, it's the same business entity, but what happened is I basically became a founder when we pivoted towards software, and as a 3, the agency kept running a little bit for a few months, but really what happened is we were profitable within a few weeks, and what that meant is by month 2 or 3 we had 8,000 in MRR. And that was enough for a small team of 3 to just go, right, we're going to do this full time, and we're going to bootstrap it from there. And then bit by bit, the business grew, our offering grew, and we were able to scale our revenue and our team. And today there's around, I think there's 23 of us now at the team working with Flick, on Flick. Yeah. Wow.
What's the projected revenue for 2022?
So in 2022, so we work in pounds, but in dollars, we're going to be at around plus or minus 100K, around 3 million in revenue.
Okay. All right. That's exciting growth. So I'm trying to get an understanding here. What is your take on creators who use analytics versus those who don't? Because I'm starting to feel like I'm missing out on a lot here, not looking at some of the data that platforms like yours provides that can give me some insights on better hashtags that I could be doing just to do things smarter. So creators, I guess, is there's 2 buckets, those that are using analytics and those that aren't. What's the big difference here?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think from what I've seen, that there's 2 really key elements to this answer. And the first is using analytics, or in general, creators don't have much time. And that's mainly because they're so focused on creating the content, which makes total sense, right? Because that is their bread and butter. But being a creator, it's almost like running your own business entirely on yourselves. You're wearing so many hats, and finding time is really hard, and time is your most valuable resource. So what tends to happen in my opinion, is some creators just take that and go, I don't have time to look at the analytics. I need to focus on content creation. I need to focus on increasing revenue and all that. And that makes total sense. But where it lets them down is if you were to spend just a little bit of time, even a couple hours a month, looking at the aggregated analytics rather than looking at your analytics religiously after every post, right? If you look at the aggregated analytics, you're going to be able to get some insight and understand some trends that will inform your content strategy, and that will make the time you spent on your content more valuable in terms of reaching your end goals, which is either increasing your following, reaching more people, or increasing your revenue through your following. So it's really just about understanding that even just 2 or 3 hours a month, just looking at the aggregated data, will save you a lot of time and money going forward, because you'll gain a better understanding of what is working and what's not working, and very often it will help you come up with ideas for future content. And I know from people I talk to that ideation is one of the longest processes or most biggest time sink for content creators is trying to ideate what they want to do for the next month or whatever. So yeah, analytics can help you inform all of those things. Absolutely.
Okay, well, cool. Now you said something when we started talking that you were managing like 15, maybe even more different accounts for different clients, like their social media accounts. Yeah. How did you not lose your mind, Loic? I can't even manage my account and it's one. How are you doing this? What were some strategies that you're doing to save time here and try to cover all these?
So it was a very stressful time. I was also at university at the time, so I wasn't even doing this full time. And it was, I think, to be honest, at the time it was just total chaos. I don't think there was too much time for me to pause and think, which in retrospect would have been a very good idea to pause, think, put some processes into place. I think I automated as much as I could. So I would schedule the content out for certain accounts where I could and when I could. And then I would have sort of batch sessions where on the weekend I might say, okay, for the next 3 or 4 hours, I'm going to spend time finding or creating content for all of these accounts. And then I'd be good for the next week or so. So the key really was that during the week, the only thing I'd be doing is just executing on the posts that had already been thought out and done through the weekend and sort of engaging and replying to comments throughout the week. So that was really the key thing. I think throughout that process and doing that, the most time consuming thing other than finding the content or creating it was the hashtags, doing hashtag research for every single one of those posts and each, some of these accounts might post a couple times a day. And that meant, finding so many new hashtags. I had spreadsheets upon spreadsheets of hashtags in my Google Sheets. And I think that definitely scarred me to the point where I decided to spend 3 years later in my life building a solution for that problem. So, yeah.
Okay. So on the topic of hashtags, if somebody were to come in and Flick and create an account, like what do you recommend is the first thing that they do? They want to test it out for free. And, what do they do?
First thing you need to do is you need to link your Instagram account to Flick, and you do that through Instagram's API. And what that will allow us to do is we'll instantly start tracking your performance on all the hashtags you use going forward. And we'll be able to provide you with analytics. So that's the first thing. The second thing you should start doing is look at your existing content and look at the content that you've planned to post in the next few weeks and understand the sort of pillars or the topics that you're really focusing on. And just start playing around with the tool and enter those broad topics into our search engine and start sort of discovering all the different suggestions that Flick will make for you. And bit by bit, you can start refining those and diving into more refined results to find hashtags that are relevant for a particular topic. The beauty about Flick is that once you've done that once and you can save those hashtags within Flick. So let's say I'm brand new on Flick. I've connected my account. I know I have a post about, lake fishing. So I'm going fishing on a lake and I've been fishing on a lake. I've got loads of content around that. I might spend half an hour finding hashtags that are relevant to that. I can put those into a folder on Flick. And from that point onwards, every week, Flick will recommend new hashtags that are relevant to that topic straight into that folder. So you won't actually need to lift a finger from that point onwards, and we'll be able to take into account your account size, take into account the hashtags you've already put into that collection. We'll be able to suggest new hashtags for you to add into that. So that's really where the time-saving element comes into play. It's when you sort of let Flick do the work for you, and once you've done that initial setup work.
All right, this sounds awesome. I'm definitely going to try this. I want to work a lot smarter. And it seems like data, the analytics is where it's at here. What is the average lift and reach that maybe somebody could expect, like a creator could expect from using your tool, being smarter about the hashtag research and start using the hashtags that were suggested? Like, is there like an average, additional reach that somebody could expect?
Sure. Yeah. So hashtags, as I said, are very much like SEO, which means that the more you use them and the more you do it and the longer you do it, the better results you're going to get from it. So when starting out, you really shouldn't expect to see much. The first period is very much about just collecting as much data and knowledge as you can in terms of what's working, what type of content is working with what type of hashtags, and where your audience is most engaged and what hashtags they're most engaged. From that point onwards, and once you've set that initial sort of process up, for a creator with say, between 1,000 to 5,000 followers, they can expect anywhere from an extra 1,000 to all the way up to 10, 15,000 extra reach on posts where hashtags perform well, or where the post performs well on the hashtags. So sometimes we see our creators get 80% of their reach through hashtags. Sometimes it's 10%. It's not something that's going to be super stable all the time, but you can expect anywhere from 10 to 80% of your reach to come through hashtags once you've sort of optimized your strategy.
Okay. Is there hashtag crossover? Because right now the tool is just works with Instagram, but I'm wondering, are the same hashtags commonly used on other platforms like Twitter and TikTok?
So yeah, so very, very often the same hashtags can be used on those platforms. The only thing is we don't have sort of we don't provide any of the metrics for those platforms that we do for Instagram at this point in time. But what we are doing is we are expanding to other platforms. So this week on the scheduling side of things, because we will also offer the ability to plan and schedule your content ahead of time on Flick, we'll be launching Facebook and the Facebook scheduler. So you'll be able to plan not only to Instagram, but also Facebook. And we'll also be launching TikTok in around 4 weeks' time. So as we expand to other platforms, we will also bring those platforms to our hashtag and analytics products as well.
All right. This is exciting stuff here. Okay. Let's talk about growth. You guys went from like 3 employees to like 23 now, something like that. And I'm wondering, like, what was the one hire that you guys brought on that was really instrumental for the company?
Yeah.
Who was that person? What were they doing? What did they do?
So just a bit of context on this. Over the last 12 months, I think we went from sort of 9 hires to 23. So we've hired a lot over the last 12 months. We sort of we were running this very much as a lifestyle business. And then we decided, no, let's scale this and take and sort of grasp the opportunity in front of us. That happened around a year ago. So I definitely think all the hires we've made, because we're bootstrapped, have had to be really, really good hires. And obviously we've made mistakes along the way. But I think the one hire for me that has had the most impact is the first product manager we brought in. So his name is Dom. And the reason he's had the most impact is because there's a couple reasons. One, I still do, but I was fully basically involved in product management beforehand, which basically meant 90% of my time was figuring out and working as a product manager, and 10% of my time was actually working as a founder and thinking a bit more about on the business things and how we can push the business forward from a strategic standpoint. And since he's come in, I've had a lot more time to work on that, which has been amazing. And the other thing, the other element is he was the first person we brought in that had him and one of our engineers, actually, Kirill, they were the first 2 people we brought in that had extensive experience in businesses. We're 3 founders who have never worked at a different company, and our first hires were also very young, or either in their early 20s, or this was sort of their first job in a SaaS business. But these 2 hires were sort of the first people who had extensive experience, and what that allowed us to do is really accelerate our learnings. And as founders, we were so happy to be able to sort of see all of our internal processes and the way we think of things evolve so quickly since bringing them in, just because obviously we were doing our best with what we knew. And it was a very, very steep learning curve. And since they've come in, they've sort of been able to validate some of the things we thought or disprove other things we were doing and we thought were good. And they've sort of driven the business forward massively.
Yeah. Cool. And let's talk about user feedback, because I think that you were responsible at one time for getting some feedback from customers here. Did you have a process, or what was your, how did you go about doing this?
Yeah. So we get feedback at a few stages. So the first stage we get feedback at is really when we're just in the problem discovery phase. We're trying to understand sort of a user's problems in a particular sort of maybe area of the product, and we'll jump on user calls to do that, and collate data from obviously our product analytics, but also customer support and the tickets coming in. Then we'll the next time we sort of look for feedback from users is when we have our first initial wireframes, and then from that point onwards, users are really tied into what we'll usually separate out a group of maybe 10 to 20 users. And especially when we're working on bigger products, and throughout the life cycle of us developing that product, they'll be involved at different stages, giving us feedback as we go. So yeah.
Okay. And I there's been times where I've accidentally sent like an email to the wrong list, and I've had to like, oh crap, I've got, people that are responding, and I've added more confusion than I was intended to. Have you ever had any mistakes that you've made since at Blick?
Yeah, I think it was in 2020. We were in the final stages of testing a product that a lot of people were waiting for, which was being able to actually tell users which hashtags were performing well on the analytics side of things. And it was going to be a very popular product. And I meant to send an email, obviously, to that tester group, which was I think it was 50 people. So, and I ended up sending it to our whole email database. So what happened is over the next hour, I got flooded with notifications from Calendly telling me that someone else had booked a call. And I think I had over 300 calls booked for the next sort of 6 weeks. On Calendly, and I had to email each of those people apologetically, telling them, "I'm sorry, didn't mean to do that. Unfortunately, I can't fulfill this call because that would have been 6 weeks of probably 10 to 15 calls a day back to back around the same area of the product." So yeah, that was definitely. I don't think I've done that since. Luckily, yeah.
Yeah. Now you take an extra second to just review the details of the email campaign.
Absolutely.
How did you break that news to your colleagues and let them know, hey, I think I made an error here? How did that conversation go?
I think it was just you had to laugh about it, to be honest, because no damage was done. Luckily, no. I don't think any of our users were feeling too hurt about it. But I think it's just something that we laughed about when I told them. I just, hey, by the way, guys, I may have emailed 50,000 people. Sorry about that. And yeah, we just laughed about it and rectified our mistake and made sure it didn't happen again. Really. So yeah.
Okay. I guess that's a good story to tell new hires, hey, everybody, we have, sometimes we have failed experiments or we have little mess ups. Here's a good example.
For sure.
Loic here.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, it's definitely important. No one's scared of failing. I mean, this is slightly different. It's not like we were running an experiment and the experiment failed or it didn't increase conversions. It was just me being absolutely silly and just messing up. But it wasn't the end of the world, and we've definitely moved past it.
Okay. So just to clarify, because I think you said I wanted to ask, what's the vision for Flick in the next couple of years? But it looks like a roadmap. TikTok is coming down the pipeline. Did I hear that correctly? In about 4 months?
Yeah, that's right. So essentially, in terms of where we've gone from the company, we were an agency. And then we were very much an Instagram hashtag tool or finder. Now we're an Instagram management platform where you can do pretty much everything you need to do on Instagram. And the next stage for us is really just to be an all-in-one social media management platform. So that means being able to have analytics for all the major social media platforms, scheduling for all the major social media platforms, a social inbox to take care of all of the DMs or comments that are coming in from all these different platforms. And just to be able to manage your whole brand on social media within Flick. And that's what we'll be focusing on for the roadmap really for the next 18 months or so is going to be focused around that and allowing more teams to work on Flick efficiently, essentially.
Cool. All right. Now for some quirky questions, just so the audience can kind of know your personality a little bit. Loic, okay, first question for you is what celebrity did you have a crush on as a teenager?
Ooh.
It could be an actress or an athlete.
Yeah, I think it has to be Shakira. I think definitely Shakira. I still don't understand how Gerard Piqué decided to cheat on her, but yeah, no, it has to be Shakira. Absolutely.
Hey, I didn't know that. I didn't even know she was married or whatever. Anyway, yeah, I'm a big fan of her too. I think she had a big crush on Rafael Nadal. That's my assumption. Do you remember they created that?
I don't, but it doesn't surprise me either. Nadal's a very good looking guy as well.
Yeah, and the guy's still winning. But cool, Shakira. All right, next question for you. What is a funny reason why you and your co-founders would go seek or ask for $100 million additional investment for Flick? A funny reason why you guys would go seek an additional $100 million investment.
Ooh, what could we do with $100 million just for the fun of it? I don't know. Turn.
You can ask Shakira.
I can ask Shakira for an ad campaign. Absolutely. We could pivot the business into real estate as well with that kind of money. There's a lot of things. We could do. But yeah, no, that could be one. I'll ask Shakira for an ad campaign. Hopefully, I hope it's not quite 100 million, but I'm sure it'll be at least a few.
Okay, last question for you. What is a funny phobia or fear that you have? A funny phobia or fear?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people, when they swim in the ocean, they have a fear of sort of the depths of whatever could come up to the depths. For some reason, when I was a kid or even as a teenager, I had that phobia, but in a swimming pool. So it was like, what could come up from underneath in a swimming pool, which makes absolutely zero sense because obviously it's a swimming pool. But yeah, I don't know why that was a thing. Yeah, fear of depths in a swimming pool.
Okay, all right. Loic, where can people learn more about you?
So
where can people?
I think
learn
the
more
best
about
place, to be honest, surprisingly, I'm not too active on social. I think I now manage or help people manage their socials, and for me, that was like, okay, that's work. My socials is like not something I do too much, but I think on LinkedIn is probably the best place to if you want to reach out to me, or if you want to reach out by email as well, which is Loic@flick.tech. So that's LOIC@flick.tech. Those will be the two places to find me.
Yeah, I'll include your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Everybody listening, this is Loic Alix-Brown from Flick. Check it out. I think it's a very smart way to scale and grow your audience reach using hashtags if you're not doing so already. Like I haven't been, but I'm going to start doing that right now. Loic, thanks for being on the show. Everybody tuning in, thank you for the final episode for season 3 of Innovators Can Laugh, and tune in next season as we will be focusing on France. That's right, specifically French startups. Loic, you're half French, so you could have been in
I could have,
4,
right?
I should have just, you could have, but then you're in England. So I like to focus on entrepreneurs in a specific country, but you could have. All right, Loic, thanks for being on the show. Have a great day.
Thank you, Eric. You too.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you could give us a review and star rating. Also, don't forget to sign up for the ICO newsletter at innovatorscanlaugh.com, where you can get the bio and details of each guest. Thanks.